everyone. Welcome to the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. I'm Ray, your audiobook reviewer, and I'll be reviewing some recent and possibly classic LitRPG audiobooks for you. Today, I'm going to begin with The Accidental Mage, which is book 3 of the Accidental Traveler adventure. It's written by Jamie Davis and CJ Davis, narrated by Robert Scarlato, and the length is 10 hours and 12 minutes.
The landing gear of the airliner touched down with a jolt, jerking Hal's thoughts back to the present. He couldn't wait to share his news. The management leadership weekend had been a success after all. Hal's strategy for their paintball capture the flag games had won the day for his team over his nemesis, Barry's team. It had even earned him a coveted invitation to sit at the table with Arantis CEO Justin Thomas. Justin had personally congratulated Hal on his leadership skills and told him he was a person to keep an eye on. The dinner had ended with an offer to join the young executive track reserved for only a few selected trainees. Hal had accepted immediately and been told they'd reassign him to the corporate headquarters downtown upon his return to Baltimore. Hal couldn't wait to tell Mona about his good fortune on the weekend trip.
Now, I really enjoyed The Accidental Thief when it first came out. I even enjoyed book 2 when it hit, and it mirrored that book as well. Now we have book 3, and I have to say, while the book is well written and well plotted, it becomes a bit all too familiar. Essentially, how Dix, the MC, gets pulled back into his game land and has to stop forces of nastiness again before he can return home. The one thing that sort of bothered me before, and really bothered me now, was how the writers basically wiped away all the skills and ability that Hal had achieved in the books preceding this. His other classes get locked out while he trains to become a mage. And that is just lazy writing in my eyes. There's no reason for that other than to say because of plot points. The other bit of bother came that not only did he have to level up one mage skill, but each elemental school had to be elevated before he could access a fifth. This led to a series of quests for him to unlock each mage school and master in days what it took other wizards years to accomplish. And I mean literally days. Within 2 months game time, he masters 5 schools of magic. Okay? It really stretched my credulity, and it would have been made simpler with him realizing just okay, I learned ice magic or fire magic, and I can see how one could be similar to another and apply and base my magic off of that. So if he learned one school, his ability as a gamer to play other schools of magic would have been a lot more interesting. But that's just me. I didn't really need to see him unlock 4 to 5 different schools of magic. Here in this book, Hal's family is kidnapped, and he must go after the Emperor himself in order to save them. In one sense, he lacks a sense of urgency, taking over 2 months to find them as he's progressing. On the other hand, I would have complained if he kept moaning and pining for them every other paragraph. So I don't want to feel like this isn't a worthwhile reader story. It is, and I enjoyed it a great deal. But my biggest issue came from the familiarity and the ending when he decides that he's going to leave and never come back. That is so the series can continue with his daughter, Carrie, instead. The action, characterizations, and pacing are all solid. And as things go, the book is fun, and you do root for Hal and his comrades. The series does wrap up existing plot points and makes it a clean slate for Carrie's return to Phantasma in the next series. I can completely respect that and appreciate the writers who can stick to a trilogy when they could have played this out forever, like The Accidental Alchemist or The Accidental Tourist or The Accidental Peasant. They don't do that. But again, they're setting up another trilogy. It's going to be the same basis. So we'll see how that goes. I just know if it's going to be a repeat of the first 3 books with her doing something different, I don't know if I'll be around for book 6, okay? Robert Scarlato is the cohesive factor for this series. His voice is like a finely aged whiskey for your ears, and he was the deciding factor for appreciating book 1 in this series. He has a strong and powerful voice that just carries the story forward. His characterization of Hal Dix is fantastic, and he corrals a whole mess of other characters in the story as it moves along. He works them all out, and I honestly think that he is what keeps this audio going, because each book is pretty much like the one preceding it. This one just kind of closes the door and kind of locks it away for Hal Dix. And that kind of irritates me because you get to know a character and get to appreciate a character. And then they say, okay, we're going to move on with somebody else. And I really think that they were originally planning on just doing this series with Carrie after book 1. And there were a lot of people that complained and said, but Hal was really good and we really enjoyed him, which I know I was one of those people. And so it's not, and I don't want to just say it was just me, but they did swap out and decide to continue on with Hal before they did Carrie stuff. So I think that Hal had fans, but they didn't really tweak the book series enough as they went, and the locking out of stuff just annoyed me to pieces. So my final score for this is 6 3/4 star, due only to the slightly repetitive nature of the books and the weak explanation of why Hal would never return. If they had kind of gone off into a new direction, done something a little bit differently with his learning of the mage skills, it would have been a much better book, much more enjoyable. It was a good and fun book, but it was not a blow me out of my seat book. Okay, I enjoyed the first book a lot better. Second book, just slightly more so than this one. And this one, it was good, but I would have been done with it after this anyway, unless something had changed. All right, thank you. All right, the next book that I'm going to review is Warscapia, a LitRPG spoof by Garrett Boggs. It's narrated by Matthew Broadhead with a length of 4 hours and 5 minutes.
After Bogsland, you must cross Desertopia. There's a lot of sand there, so I've heard. Jade raises her hand.
Just sand? What's so bad about sand?
Sand? Sand? Rock's eyes grow huge. I hate sand. It's so coarse and rough, and it gets everywhere.
Spade shrugs his shoulders.
Come on, Rock. A bit of sand never hurt anybody. Okay.
Rock grins.
I'll rip the sand to pieces. Rock destroys sand.
He throws a punch into midair. He then whispers to Jade.
Don't worry, baby girl. I'll protect you from all the sand.
Shut up, Rock.
The third is the most treacherous. You need to survive Wizard's World.
Rock and Jade collectively gasp in horror. I seem to be out of the loop. What's so scary about Wizard's World?
There are witches and wizards. Many hostile magic users.
Spade answers.
Now, my particular take on this is that a spoof is when you take a particular genre or film and imitate it and then exaggerate the characteristics of said item for comedic effect. Warscapia is not a spoof by any standards I could think of. If you want a spoof, watch Spaceballs. That's a spoof, okay? If you want literary spoofs, then they're on Audible. Go and check out Lord of the Rings, a parody written by the Harvard Lampoon and narrated by Jim Messikin, okay? It's funny, and it attacks its target mercilessly. Seriously, it may not be a lit RPG book, but it's a good listen. And Warscapia does none of this, okay? None. You don't have to be you don't have player issues outside of the game, nor is there a recognizable world that's being riffed on. There are no races or situations that matter that you could say they are being spoofed. You could take any number of books and say, okay, this happened in Awaken Online or Somnia Online or Ascend Online. It's a lot of onlines. Try maybe Delvers, okay? But anyway, you could take one of those things and really parody it and make it a spoof. But that's not the case here. For all intents and purposes, this book should just be considered a lit RPG comedy and only barely so in that matter. You want honesty? The book is silly, but not a kind of fun, ha-ha kind of funny. The MC is a mage named Sparrow, and he summons ducks to do his fighting. The fighter is a guy named Rockstar, and he knows just how cool he is, and their female companion is so integral to the plot and story that I have forgotten her name. And I think maybe it was Jade, but not sure what she did, but it really doesn't matter. She didn't matter much anyway. The book is about as lit as an unopened box of matches. If leveling weren't involved, I don't think it would qualify in my eyes. Titles do not necessarily make it so. You call it a lit RPG spoof, and I don't see lit RPG very much in this, and I don't see spoof at all. The book itself is pretty weak. It's like a tea bag that's been used 100 times 100 times, and now it actually purifies water more than it flavors it. It does have a story arc, and the characters do get more powerful, but there's no development or character growth per se. Sparrow does end up becoming to accept his ability to summon ducks, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. Now, as for the funny stuff, wait. For a spoof, there's very little to be found. Boggs attempts to very slightly break the fourth wall by inserting himself in the story, but that fell flat, very flat. The group fights a lot of monsters with stupid names like lizard monkeys and a Dracula dragon. I don't know, slight spoiler. Can I give that to you? The dragon is actually an alt form of a vampire, Count Dracula. And now, what was the missed opportunity here? With a name like Dracula, he should have been in a race car, per the old Munsters Dracula race car, or at least in ladies' clothing for the drag aspect, a la RuPaul. Nope. I'm just saying nope. This is crap. He was Dracula Light. That's all. Just a different name to differentiate him from Dracula. His cousin is Dracula. There are a lot of things you might consider funny if you were reading the book. But Broadhead, and I love Broadhead from his readings of The Bathrobe Knight, one of my favorite narrators from that series. He just lacks the proper comedic timing or inflection to sell jokes. For example, there's a lot of talk in the book about these heavy metal goblins whose music will corrupt your soul. And one of the party members retorts back, but I don't have a soul. And it would have been funny if read right, okay, if it had been done. But the way he did it, it just kind of fell flatter than a sheet of paper, okay? About the only thing that was done right here vocally were the various quacks that ducks do. Zombie Duck was the best. Tracker Duck kind of came in second. And it's a shame because, like I say, I've really enjoyed him in other books. BK, Bathrobe Knight, beloved series of my family and I. My son still insists that I say that Broadhead cannot do female voices. And I will note that here, they tended to be the same as other characters he's done. But he really nailed the heavy metal Goblin Guard and Chuckles voices. His Count Dracula was your standard blah, blah, blah. I'm a vampire, Logosian imitation. So it wasn't very original. I could do the same thing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm Count Dracula. Okay, that's it. That's as far as it went. There was a lot of opportunity to make it funnier. I mean, if it had been a RuPaul voice, it would have been way better. Okay. Books has another LitRPG book out called Dragon Mastery Daybreak. I'll be passing that one by. I just don't want to beat him up any further. I'm tending now, if I don't like a book, I'm not going to go back to it and try another book from a different series that the same author has written, because I don't want to be a brutal bash up the author over and over again. And if it's great, someone out there, please let me know. I'll give it a try. If you really think it's really, really good, I will give it a listen and see what I can do. But for me right now, it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to just do like Count Olaf says, and I'm going to look away. Just look away. My final score for Warscapia is a 4 out of 10. Not funny, lame characters, and no real plot. Very sad. Oh, what's going on, guys? I'm sorry. Next up is Awaken Online, written by Travis Bagwell and narrated by David Stifle. Not stifle yourself, Edith, just stifle. The book length is 23 hours and 2 minutes.
The blow sent the poor maid tumbling forward, her tray of drinks flying through the air and crashing against a nearby table. The room quieted slightly at the commotion, loud curses filling the air as a group of angry men covered in sticky beer rose to their feet. One of the now dripping wet sailors grabbed the man who had stumbled into the waitress. "You owe our group another round," he shouted, his face growing red. The rather drunk-looking man looked at him in confusion. Then his gaze darted to the sailor's insignia, and a glimmer of recognition flashed in his eyes. It'll be a cold day in hell before I buy cairn men around. Besides, I heard your kind preferred to lap it off the floor like a dog. Consider this a favor." This earned the man a round of laughter from the members of House Bane that lingered around the room. Jason's attention shifted to the other patrons, noting the angry expressions of the cairn men and women and the way their hands were already creeping toward their weapons.
Now I've got a few things I want to say about this book, so I want to dive right into it since I'm just kind of getting out of this sleepy haze. There were several issues that I had. First of all, I want to say it like this. I am a fan of the series. I think that Bagwell is a writer's writer, someone that other writers really respect and look up to. I give him full props for the excellence that he inspires and a bit of the fear because I know that there are authors who will not release books near his release date when they know it's coming out. So I know the dude has some serious chops. I say this just so you know where I'm coming from, okay? First of all, the book is in need of some serious editing. And I don't mean grammatical error editing. I mean, this book could have used major trimming. I have no problem with long runtimes, okay? Shoot, I listened to Galaxy Outlaws, the complete Black Ocean Mobius missions for over 85 hours. Now, it wasn't straight read through, of course, or straight listening, but I did listen to it from start to finish, never ending at a time, without going through a lot of caffeine, and I was entertained the entire time. Here, however, the hippie trials, for example, seem to take on this Twilight Zone style life of their own. The trials that I found that were not very interesting and they weren't entertaining. They weren't very original, and I just could have cared less about the tricks and the things he had to go through to pass. For me, the whole sequence was just interminably long. Honestly, I don't know if Bagwell wants a certain page length or a book length or a page count or something like that, but it comes across to me as this was just a rambling and drawn out sequence. Secondly, the subplots, the ones involving Alexion or Alex, and the other involving the dev trying to find out about Alfred, were broken up and spread out to a point where I said, I get it. I totally get it. Alex is a complete douchebag and he has evil machinations. Move on. And the dev, she took forever getting to her clues. And I, for the record, have to say, I am really tired of Alexion. He's self-entitled, self-centered, egomaniacal. He's a bully. He isn't fun. He is not fun. He bores the hell out of me. He should have been a villain that lasted for book one and then got swapped out for someone with real teeth. Like a tiger, okay? Not only does he get everything, and I mean everything handed to him in real life, but even in the game. And in the end, he gets advanced for no real reasons, with no real effort being put in other than plot points to keep him apace with Jason. And I'm not trying to spoil your concept of what happens in the book, but if you're any kind of a reader, you know that if character A, the main character, increases in power and his enemy, who starts out here, doesn't, then this guy has a total advantage. And so therefore, he's going to advance about the same or maybe a little bit more. So there's no surprise that Alexion does get stronger at the end. But the way it happens was totally unjustified. And with Alfred being the AI that runs the game, you have to ask yourself one of two things. Either Alfred has an overall arching plan to help rectify what Alexion's going through, Alec is going through in real life, and help to mesh with Jason so that eventually the two become friends and allies and they do something together. But I really hope that's not the case, because that's just kind of trite and it's trope. And I just can't take that concept. The other thing is that Alfred has no real concept of what goes on with Alexion and could care less that it's affecting his friend. He just lets events unfold as they unfold, and that would be fine. But it just does not make for a very exciting character to have him just continually power up and level up while Jason has to work the entire time. So there's that. Now, I also want to say this felt like a pilot book to me, okay? And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't scour the internet looking to see when new books are coming out or what's going to happen with an author in their series. We just got this book out not too long ago, and I know there was a lot of points in between where there were long waits. So I wasn't expecting another Awaken Online book to come out. So when I first started reading this, or I should say listening, I said to myself, man, Eliza feels like a pilot character. Like Joey from Friends went to visit his cousin, Eliza. They had some laughs, and then Joey went home and never talks about Eliza again. And the next thing you know, next year during the fall, Eliza comes out, and she's like, it's cousin Joey's friend Eliza, has her own show now. And that's what it felt like to me before I even knew that Apathy was coming out. I just found out today, to tell you the truth, that Apathy was coming out. And it just kind of really made me wonder why you would do that when you've got a series, you've got so many books in, and you've only game time or daytime or book time, however you want to word it, start to finish. It's only been 22 days in the book itself from start book 1 till now. So why would you start another book to kind of flush things out when you really have a lot of work to go in this series? Because I can't see an end nearby. I really can't. So the problem that I have with Eliza is that she's very Jason-like to start with. She's a loner. She's unsure of herself. And he was like that at the beginning of the book, the beginning of the series, I should say, where he just did not really have a whole lot of confidence and energy to put himself out there. He kind of let other people, his parents especially, dominate his life. And Eliza is the same way. She's shy, backwards. Her parents dominate her. And can I just stop for a second and say, Travis, I really do love your writing. I'm not trying to bash your book at all, but I'm going to be a critic here. You have some serious parenting issues. I don't know if you had problems with your mother or father, but do you know every character you have, Frank, Eliza, Jason, Riley, every one of those characters have serious issues with their parents. And if you want to talk about serious issues, Jason being in jail for 3 days, and it's not a spoiler because it's in the beginning, the very first pages of the book, and it continues over from last book. Being in jail for 3 days without his parents showing up or sending any kind of legal counsel or doing anything on his behalf boggles my mind. And I know that you used to be an attorney, or you may still be, and I don't know if you practice law, but children have to have a parent when their child is interrogated, and there should be a legal representation. For 3 days, no legal representation or parents. That astounds me. He was not charged. He should have been formally released. And you can argue with me and say, hey, that's the way my book is. In that world, the laws are changed a little bit. And I'm going to call you on that because you never said, hey, this used to be the way it was way back when. So, plot point. I don't buy it. And I'm going to tell you it like this. I'm a parent of 5 right now. Okay, I've got 5 kids. If one of my kids were in trouble with the law, and especially if it was a legal issue such as murder, I don't care who told me that I could not come back or what I could or couldn't do. My butt would be back so fast, it would be on fire. Okay? I would have called, even if I couldn't get there, to make sure that there was some sort of legal representation on behalf of my child before I ever made it out the door. Hell, I'd have done it as I was running out the door. Okay? So I have to wonder why, like CYS, Child Youth Services, haven't taken Jason away, because there is no connection with his parents whatsoever. I mean, they may say they care about him, but I just don't see it at this point. And Eliza, overly protective parents trying to dominate her life, control her. It's the same thing. It's bad parent, bad parent, bad parent. Not all parents are evil, and I just want to get that out there. I'd like to see some characters, that actually have positive parents. Poor Frank, he's second best. Mom always liked the brother best, to quote the Smothers Brothers. So just kind of ease up a little bit on that, because that also is just kind of unbelievable for an entire population of characters to dominate the game and all be in the same area and all have the same issues. That has some writing problems for me. Okay. And again, I do like the book. I don't want to not say that. Okay. The book is great. It's fun, but it was long, and there was problems that I had, especially when the parents didn't show up. David Stifel, he continues to crush on the narration. I have no issues or qualms with anything he did. Top notch across the board. He handled this entire series about as professionally as you could ask and made it fun to listen to. Even for the long drawn out parts, he did not let anybody down. And like Forrest Gump says, that's all I have to say about that. Now, again, I don't want to say I didn't like this book. It was fun, and it was action-packed, and the action was really good. It was well written, but it did need trimming. And as far as I'm concerned, the villain has lost his teeth. Okay, the Emperor has no clothes. Alexion is as boring and annoying, and he's not intimidating as I can take. I just can't deal with the guy anymore. And for me, the bad guy is way, way, way more important than the hero, because the bad guy is who the hero bounces all of his stuff off of. If you want to show how good the hero is, how much morality and integrity the hero has, then the bad guy has to be exactly the opposite. And having a wishy-washy, whiny crybaby as the bad guy does not do Jason justice, because Jason is a really cool character. But he doesn't have a worthy opponent, okay? Just does not. And I don't care what you do to fix him, it's never going to work for me, because that's the character I'm always going to know. Really, Alex has got to go. I can't take him anymore. So for this reason, because of the annoyance of Alexion, and there were some slow points, like I said, I will give this book a rating of 7 out of 10. Part of that is for the series track record, because I have enjoyed this series a heck of a lot. So I'm making it a little bit higher than I would have given if this had been a standalone first novel. So again, I'm really not trying to beat you up. Travis, man, you really know how to tell a story, and you are awesome. But I just can't take this the way it is anymore with Alexion especially. And it wouldn't hurt to just trim back some stuff. Sometimes less is more. Okay, that's what we say in the funeral business. When it comes to makeup, less is more. So don't overdo it. Sometimes you just need to get to your point. And if this had been a 14-hour book, man, it would have slammed. It would have been a great home run, a grand slam probably. But 23 hours, it was a little bit overly long. And I don't want to say that in a negative way, but I'm being negative about it. Let's be honest. It just needed to calm itself down. So thank you. But 7 out of 10. Sorry. All right, next up is Days of High Adventure by Elliot Kay. It's narrated by Tess Irondale and has a length of 4 hours and 14 minutes.
Amid the desert ruins of the ancient empire of Thol stand powerful city-states whose kings rule only in name. Dark wizards, sequestered in tall towers, hold the real control, vying in secret for the lost secrets of a forgotten age. Amanda read the first lines of Jason's email with an intrigued grin. The thread had already gone on for a few exchanges before she'd gotten to it. She usually resisted the urge to spend time on her personal email while at work, even when she had nothing to do at her reception desk. Given the financial firm's exclusive clientele, Amanda spent many hours alone in the plush but windowless lobby. As promised, the email went on, I will be ready to run game on Thursday night. My summer class load is pretty light, so I should have no problems getting this campaign off the ground. We are going for an old-fashioned pulp fantasy feel here, so that means several character creation restrictions. Hearing the office door open, Amanda fought the urge to close her email. This was her scheduled break, the one that she was supposed to be able to take away from her desk. She'd have been glad to leave the desk if Mark would ever actually cover for more than a quick bathroom break, like he was supposed to. It wasn't Mark this time, though. Karen and Linda strode out in heels and flattering skirts.
Now, full disclosure here, this is a good book that you might consider to be game lit, or you may not. For me, there's enough to justify calling this story lit RPG, even though the book really kind of skates the boundaries of the genre. Days is set in the real world and focuses on a gaming group, so that meets criteria number 1. The group includes several people, but only 2 of them are really relevant to the story. During the gaming session, the MC, a young lady named Amanda, begins to joke about the main bad guy's name, Beldenab. She calls out to him over and over, like Beetlejuice, like he was Beetlejuice or something. And the GM warns her not to do that. Later on, she does it again. Oh, Beldenab. And while she's with her other gamer friend, Eric. And this time, Beldenab hears her, and he pulls the pair into his world, thus meeting criteria number 2 of game lit rules. They actually enter the world of the game itself. From there, the 2 become slaves and have to figure out how to escape confinement and make their way back home. Sort of sounds like criteria number 3. Most times if you go into a RPG game, against your will, the first thing you're going to want to do is find your way back. So I'm counting things and I'm saying, yeah, this fits. Anyway, the story is actually interesting and is told in a very appropriate amount of time. Again, I've been looking for good short LitRPG books because not everything has to be 14 hours or 12 hours or even 8 hours. So this really kind of hit the spot for me. It was a nice meaty book, but it was 4 hours instead of 8, and it worked really well in that time frame. Any shorter and it would have missed the mark. Any longer, it would have totally failed. The characterizations, the story, the plot, and the pacing all really flow. The only thing that threw me was the sudden appearance of the sex. And no, I don't look at disclaimers, or I would have seen that there had been a big warning about sex at the bottom. Nor did I notice that this was a book written by the same Elliot Kay who writes the series Good Intentions, which is just chock full of naughtiness. I like to go into things kind of blind, without expectations. So I just see the book, I know it's LitRPG or it's in that area, and I get it. So it's one of those things where I say the sex here doesn't take away from the story. It doesn't overwhelm, but neither can I say it adds anything. It's just kind of there. But it does kind of come out of the blue really fast. If you don't know what to expect, it will, boom, hit you right in the face, and you're like, wow, where did that come from? Because up to that point, it was just a standard LitRPG book, okay? There is character development for Amanda and Eric, a lot. There is a lot of growth, and the story hinges on their growth. There's also a pretty kick-butt barbarian babe who you should thoroughly enjoy. The world they enter is dark and drab and starkly merciless. I kept thinking back to Dark Sun from TSR way back when, which it really matched the description of what the GM had laid out when they were playing their game. So I'm going to say that's criteria met also. Tess Irondale does a pretty good job here. She has a voice for each character, and you can feel the disdain the bad guys have for the rest of the people around them. She doesn't amaze me, but the job is handled well, and there are no issues with the audio. Like I say, this is really a close call for me. It fits the lit criteria, and the deal sealer came when Amanda realized that the magic spells were laid out exactly as they were in 4th edition, okay, for her game. So I really say it meets the criteria. You can argue with me all you want, but I've got 5 or 6 points where I can say this fits lit RPG, okay, or at least game lit, and I'm doing that kind of stuff. So this is really, really there. Now, personally, this is a 6 out of 10 stars. I would have been happy with what they did. I can't say it's a fantastic, amazing book. You don't walk away with your mind blown if they'd done a little bit more with it. But I would very much enjoy revisiting the characters and see how they handle their return to our world, or faring a trip back to Beldenab's digs. So give it a try. 6 out of 10. It won't overwhelm you, but it is good for a getaway of a few hours. And like I say, LitRPG can also be done very well with short runs, okay? So don't pass it up just because it's got a short run time. I really recommend this book. And like I say, 6 out of 10. It's just because the narration wasn't amazing. And then there were a lot of good things about it, but there also were a couple little pointy problems that I said, okay, it's not one of the greats, but it's right there. All right, so go out and enjoy that book. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate you taking your time to watch or listen to the show. If you want to support us, we would ask that you could go and like the LitRPG Podcast Facebook page or the YouTube page, or just share and like the video. Also, I would ask if you could to please leave a comment below. I like to get feedback and see how I can improve, and anything I can do to make the show better, that's what I'm going to listen to. So make sure you leave a comment, and I'll be happy to get back to you. For the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast, I'm Ray. Keep listening. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Thank you.